So page 157.
That doesn't help. I'm on
Pasuk Yud Zayin 17.
Right.
So today we'll devote the lesson today for a review because it's an end of an era. Today we are learning about the death of Yerovam,
right,
and the beginning of the reign of his son Nadav as the king of Israel. So it's an end of an era, and therefore we'll review it a little bit, although we took most of it already in the last lessons, but you know, we have to review it to understand what's going on and to be able to proceed. So, so it says, Pasuk 17, 17 Yud Zayin, ותקם אשת ירבעם ותלך ותבוא תרצתה, היא באה בסף הבית והנער מת. We took this pasuk last time, and Yerovam's wife arose, and she went and arrived in Tirzah. She came onto the threshold of the house, and the youth died.
It's not there. Maybe she turns things off for him.
Page pasuk Yud 18.
Walker.
ויקברו אותו ויספדו לו כל ישראל, כדבר השם אשר דיבר ביד עבדו אחיהו הנביא. And all of Israel buried him and eulogized him as the word of the Lord of Hashem that he spoke through his servant Achiah the Shilonite. That is the, remember Achiah Shiloni is the prophet,
right,
who tore the garment and he gave him 10 pieces of the garment and all this. So, and now, number Yutet 19. ויתר דברי ירבעם אשר נלחם ואשר מלך, הינם כתובים על ספר דברי הימים למלכי ישראל. And the rest of the events of Yerovam that he fought and how he ruled are written in the book of Chronicles of the kings of Israel. Now, what is the book of Chronicles? The book of Chronicles is every king used to have in the ancient world, every king had a book of Chronicles. Also, King Ahasuerus, if you remember from the book of Esther, and it's Purim this week. So if you remember from the book of Esther, also King Ahasuerus had Sefer Divrei Hayamim leMalchei Paras uMadai, the book of Chronicles of the kings of Persia and Media. And so this is a book that unfortunately we don't have it anymore. It got lost throughout the generations.
The other side.
But this used to be a book that all the deeds and the wars and the achievements of the king that died were chronicled, recorded in the book of Chronicles. Now, so והימים אשר מלך ירבעם 22 שנה, וישכב עם אבותיו וימלוך נדב בנו תחתיו. And he said, and the days that Yerovam reigned were 22 years, and he slept with his forefathers, and his son Nadav ruled instead of him. So we have an end of the era here, as I said before. Yerovam died. He reigned of 22 years over all of Israel. In other words, the 10 tribes. And after he passed away, he was buried. He slept with his fathers, yes, and Nadav, his son, reigned in his stead. So let's see. ותקם אשת ירבעם ותלך ותבוא. And the wife of Yerovam stood up, and she went, she walked, and she came. So just like Achia the prophet instructed her. What did Achia tell her? Ve'at kumi lechi lebeitech, and you get up and go to your house. And we cannot find in the entire book here that she uttered even one word. After all, she heard from the prophet about a terrible calamity that will befall her household. And she was so overwhelmed and so frightened that she couldn't speak even one word. She couldn't utter a word. And so it was a terrible tidings and a terrible message that the Navi, the prophet, put on her to go to her husband and to tell him all these things. And we saw it already last time that the verbs vatakam, vatelech, vatavo, and she got up and she went and she came. This is an allusion to the speed in which she did it. She went away very, very quick. Why? Because she knew, on the surface, she knew that it depends upon her. Once she comes to the house, the lad will die. But she didn't. This did not stop her from coming, because she had the hope to see her son when he was still alive, but it didn't happen. Vatavo Tirtzata, she came to the city of Tirza. The city of Tirza, that is the city from which she went out. And this was the capital city of Yerovam, the city of Tirza. And Tirza was already in the ancient Canaanite era. It was already a very important city. It was a city of a royal city of the Canaanite kings. And in the time of Shlomo HaMelech, in the time of King Solomon, the city of Tirza was already very famous with its beauty. Why? Because it's written in the book of, in the Shir HaShirim, the book, the Song of Songs, which was authored by Shlomo HaMelech. It is written, Yafat ra'ayati ketirza, nava ki Yerushalayim. You are as beautiful, my beloved, as Tirza, and you are as graceful as Jerusalem, as Yerushalayim. So this is a pasuk in Shir HaShirim, but from here we learn that already in those days, in the days of Shlomo HaMelech, much before Yerovam, Tirza was already a city known not only because of its strategic importance, but also by its beauty. And we can assume that the origin of the name Tirza is from the daughters of Tzlofchad. Remember the daughters of Tzlofchad who died in the desert without sons, and his daughters wanted an inheritance, and they approached Moshe Rabbeinu. So one of the daughters was called Tirza, and we assume that the city of Tirza was an inheritance, or within the estate, that this daughter received after she got married to one of her cousins. Why did the daughters of Tzlofchad get married to their cousins? Because had they not done so, their land after they died, would go to the tribe of their husbands. So therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu instructed them to marry someone from their own tribe. So the land should not go from one tribe to another tribe and hereby cause havoc in the division of land among the tribes of Israel. So then we see Ve'anar met, and the lad died. In the very same moment that she stepped in the house, the lad died. And ויקברו אותו, ויספדו לו כל ישראל. And they buried him, and all of Israel eulogized him. And we saw already last time, because he did something which was good in the eyes of Hashem. Now the Tanakh does not specify what was the good that he did in the eyes of Hashem, but Chazal tell us in the Gemara, in the Babylonian Talmud, in Masechet Sanhedrin, Chazal tell us that apparently he removed all the guards and the guides and the policemen that his father Yerovam put on the ways which led from Israel to Jerusalem in order to prevent the people of Israel, the 10 tribes, to go to Jerusalem. Because he knew, Yerovam knew that if they will go to Jerusalem, eventually they'll recognize Rechavam, the son of Shlomo, who was the king of Yehuda. They will recognize him as the real king and master, and they will come back to Israel and kill him, Yerovam. So therefore, he wouldn't allow them to go. So Nadav, Aviyah, the lad who died, not only that he canceled these soldiers and policemen on the way, but Aviyah died, but before he died, he was already the heir to the throne, so he was a lad, and he made pilgrimage to Jerusalem himself. So Chazal maintained the opinion that these were the things which were good in the eyes of Hashem, and therefore he had the merit to be buried, and he had the merit to be eulogized by all of Israel, unlike his father and his brother that did not come to burial, as we'll see a bit later. So, now we see Veyeter Divrei Yerovam, and the rest of the history of Yerovam is recorded in the book of Chronicles. This is a very, very common ending to the reigns of all the kings of Yehuda and Israel. And also, not only in our book here in Sefer Melochim, but also in the book of Divrei Hayamim, the book of Chronicles. You know that in the two last books of the Tanakh are called Divrei Hayamim, the books of Chronicles. There is Divrei Hayamim Aleph, Divrei Hayamim Chronicles 1, and there is Chronicles 2. And why is it called the book of Chronicles? It repeats all the narratives that we have in the Tanakh, in the books themselves, like the book of Kings, the book of Shoftim, even the book of Bereshis. Everything is repeated with slightly different details and slightly different things that might shed some light on a few phenomena or narratives that we do not understand, or the Tanakh doesn't see fit to teach us, to show us. So he says, and the rest of his fights, his wars. Now, what kind of wars did Yerovam have? Yerovam, what kind of wars? We don't see any wars with any strange nations. So the meaning here is especially to the wars that he waged wars between him and Rechavam, the son of Shlomo. So in other words, the king of Israel and the king of Judah used to fight one another, and they were enemies. They were hostile to one another until Yerovam died. And Asher Malach, and also all the recording of his reign. What does it mean? The recording of his reign, all the deeds which, for instance, he took existing cities and he fortified them. He prepared them for war in case an enemy will come and will wage war against him. So he fortified many cities, and he did other things in the areas of administration, of security, and so forth. So these are called Maasei HaMelech, the deeds of the king, and they are written by the hands of the scribes of the king, Sofrei HaMelech, the scribes of the king, and in the book of Chronicles, LeMalchei Israel, to the kings of Israel. This is the name of the king. Unfortunately, this book did not survive, so we don't.
Do you hear me? Do you hear us?
Now, V'hayamim asher malach Yerovam,
Just go.
and the days in which Yerovam reigned.
Oh, you know what I can do?
So also this form is a common form that Tanakh is using for all the kings of Judah and the kings of Israel. Now,
They can't tape that.
when Amelech David died,
Unless they tape it.
and Amelech Shlomo died, so the Tanakh tells us their names, and the names of their mothers, and the names of their capital cities. Like in this case, Yerushalayim, which was the capital city of David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech. But here, when Yerovam died, the Tanakh doesn't tell us the name of his capital city. Why? Because it might be, some of the Meforshim maintain the opinion that it might be because he ruled or he reigned from 3 different capital cities. As we remember, he started with the city of Shechem, the city of Nablus in English, the city of Shechem, and then he removed himself from Shechem to the city of Pnuel, that we remember from the time of Yaakov Avinu, when he built an altar in Pnuel, an altar to Hashem, and only after that he reigned in Tirzah. And also, the Tanakh doesn't tell us on whom did he reign. The Tanakh, when it comes to David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech, so the Tanakh tells us that they reigned over Israel and Judah, or over Israel. Here, the Tanakh doesn't tell us anything about on whom he reigned. And also, later on, we'll see that the Tanakh didn't tell us also the same thing about Nadav. Nadav was Yerovam's son who reigned after him, because the older son died, as we saw before, as the prophecy of Achia Shiloni took place, was fulfilled. But later on, Nadav, who was the younger and who succeeded his father as king, we don't know anything about his capital city and on whom did he reign. But on the other hand, it might be that it's muvan me'elav, it's understood by itself. Because we can come to the conclusion where he reigned and on whom did he reign from all the narrative that the Tanakh gives us in the background material before and after the death of Yerovam and Nadav. Vayishkav im avotav, and he laid with his fathers or with his forefathers. So this is an honorable expression of the Tanakh. He laid with his forefathers to emphasize that he died a natural death. Yes, he died a natural death. And the Tanakh didn't tell us, not as far as Yerovam is concerned, and not as far as his son Nadav was concerned. He didn't tell us where they were buried and when they were buried. Because the previous kings like David and Shlomo, the Tanakh is very specific when they died, how many years they reigned, and when they died, and how old they were, not with Yerovam and Nadav. So in all the kings that came from the Davidian dynasty who ruled in Judah, in the kingdom of Judah, to differentiate from the kingdom of Israel, and also 6 of the kings of Israel who were good kings. What does it mean, good kings? They did good things in the eyes of Hashem. So the Tanakh, so all these kings which I just enumerated now, the Tanakh tells us when they died, where did they die, where they were buried, and so forth. The Tanakh was specific about them. But all those kings who were evil in the eyes of Hashem and did evil things in the eyes of Hashem, the Tanakh did not specify as far as their burial place, the location of it and the time of it. So, and we can assume that the Tanakh did not specify it in order to fulfill the prophecy of Achia Shiloni, the prophet Achia the Shilonite. Remember the Achia the Shilonite, the prophet who took the garment and he tore it into 12 pieces and he gave Yerovam 10 pieces. So because he said, Ze levado yavo leYerovam el kever. He himself, that is Avihu, the lad who died, the son of Yerovam who died, he himself of the entire dynasty of Yerovam will be buried. And all the rest of the dynasty of Yerovam, that is Yerovam himself and his son Nadav, will not be buried and will not come to a grave like as befits a king. And they were. We saw before that the prophet says that the dogs will eat them and the birds of prey will eat them and so forth. But this we'll see later. Now to review the whole story of Yerovam, the king of Israel. So the entire story, the entire narrative has 2 sides of the coin to it. From one side, it's a side of deceit and lies. Just like Yerovam lied to the people about the golden calves and the erection of Bamot, the high places, and the Kohanim not from the tribe of Levi, and so forth. On the other hand, the other side of the coin was divine providence full of miracles and wonders, which were accompanying the prophecies of the prophets that we saw in the story of Yerovam. So and also the main essence of Yerovam's deed was that good deeds. He had some good deeds. The good deeds was that he fortified the kingdom. He defended the people from enemies. But as far as the Avodat Hashem, the worship of Hashem was concerned, he was a terrible king. He was Yerovam עשה את תורתו plaster. He took the Torah and he made it into, he was a heretic, yes? And the Gemara says in Masechet Sanhedrin, in the Babylonian Talmud, Masechet Sanhedrin, page 102, second page, B, he says, Yerovam עשה את תורתו plaster, he did his Torah into a lie, yes, he changed it into a lie, לאחר שבתחילה לא היה בה שום דופי. After which, in the beginning, there was no blemish in his Torah. Remember, he was a big Talmid Chochem, Yerovam, and he and Achia Shiloni, the prophet, used to learn together with him, and they made a lot of chidushim, new understandings in the Torah, because you know the Torah, we say, Chazal say, hafoch ba va'afoch ba dekula ba. You can learn the Torah 70 times, 100 times. Every time you learn the Torah, you find the chidush, you find something new. And you can learn the Torah for 40 years, 50 years, 70 years, and on the 70th year, you'll find something that you didn't think about in the first year. So Yerovam and Achia Shiloni, the prophet, they were chevruta. They learned Torah together. And in the beginning, there was no dofi, there was no blemish in the Torah of Yerovam. But then when he became king and he went to his head and he wanted to establish his rule, and he understood that establishing his rule is not going to take place if he will not prevent the people from going to Jerusalem and making the king in Jerusalem their king and master. So he says here, the Gemara says, Uba v'chata v'echti et Israel. And he came and he sinned, and not only he sinned, but he caused the entire nation of Israel to sin. And this is not a mean thing. This is not a small thing, because first of all, the people had to do what the king commanded them to do. But on the other hand, Chazal said that as far as Avodat Hashem, the worship of Hashem is concerned, the people should have rebelled against him, because you cannot be a king without the support of your people. But so on one hand, they were afraid of him. On the other hand, they were punished because of it. How were they punished? Because he caused a complete destruction of his kingdom. When the king of Assyria, later on, when the king of Assyria, a few generations later, came and destroyed Shomron. Shomron was the capital city of the kingdom of Israel from the time of King Omri, that will take a bit later, King Omri, until the destruction of the kingdom and the exile of the 10 tribes to the land of Assyria. And to this day, we don't know where the 10 tribes are. We assume that they are in India, in Iraq, in Southeast Asia. There are many, many tribes today in Southeast Asia that have some Jewish minhagim, Jewish customs, and such as lighting Shabbos candles and the purity of the family. And this is definitely Jewish customs, but we don't know where it came from, and we don't know. So we assume that these are the 10 tribes. Today they are not Jewish anymore, but these are the 10 tribes of Israel that brought with them all the customs from the land of Israel to the land of Assyria and all the lands of their dispersion later on. They were dispersed all over the place. So Yerovam, who was afraid for his life and who was afraid for his honor and the respect that the people give him, so he knew himself, he knew within his own heart, he knew that the kingship of Israel was given to the Davidian dynasty forever and ever. And in one of the days in the future, the nation of Israel is destined to go back to Jerusalem, to their masters who ruled in Judah from the Davidian dynasty. And therefore, he decided, as we saw last week and the week before, he decided to disconnect the children of Israel, the 10 tribes of Israel. He decided to disconnect them from the Beis Hamikdash, from the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, because the Holy Temple in Jerusalem was holy because the Shekhinah, the divine presence, rested upon it. And the divine presence did not rest on any golden calves and any bamot and any high places of worship, or idol worship, that Yerovam built throughout the land of Israel. So he knew, deep in his heart, he knew that. But he wanted to keep his kingship, and he wanted to defend his own life and the life of his dynasty. So he forbade the children of Israel to go to Jerusalem on the 3 holidays of pilgrimage, which is Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. But Chazal say because of his Gasut Ruach, Gasut is coarse, Ruach is spirit. He had a coarse spirit. In modern English, we'll say it is conceit. He was conceited. So he had a coarse spirit, like Chazal say, and because of that, he does not reveal the thoughts that he had within his heart to his people, to the people of his court, the people who help him, to his army chiefs and so forth. But he wants to reform the avodas Hashem, the worship of Hashem. Now there is we learn from here that the reform that he wanted to establish was in the need that he wanted to receive to fix the entire value system, the entire value system that, to his claim, he claimed that was blemished throughout the generations. So there is a very famous book which is called the First Reform in Israel. The first reform in Israel was the reform that Yerovam made in the worship of Hashem throughout the land of Israel. And when we go through the story of Yerovam, we see a lot of wonders and miracles. What is the difference between a miracle and a wonder? A wonder and a miracle, on the surface, it's more or less a synonym. But a wonder is a bit less than a miracle. A miracle is more, and we speak here, we saw here in the story, we saw here the story of three prophets. Two of them are true prophets, and one of them is a false prophet. So it was Isha Elohim, the man of God from Judea, who Chazal tells us that his name was Iddo the prophet, and he unfortunately died because he violated his own prophecy, because he was lied to by the false prophet. And Achiyah of Shiloh in Ephraim. Achiyah, the Shilonite, the city of Shiloh is within the inheritance of the tribe of Ephraim. So we took all this. I'll not go again because we took all this last time, and he came to the Mizbeach and he spoke to the Mizbeach, and you remember, and what was the other miracle? The first miracle was that the Mizbeach, the altar, was split, and the ashes from the altar spilled, just like the prophet prophesied. And then the second miracle was the paralysis that took over the hands of Yerovam. Remember that he couldn't bring the hands back. He extended his hand towards the prophet, and he says to his people, "Seize him," and his hand became paralyzed. So, and then this is the second miracle. And what is the third miracle? That the man of God, Iddo the prophet, prayed to Hashem. The king asked him to pray to Hashem so he can bring his hand back to himself. And Isha Elohim, the man of God, prayed to Hashem, and Hashem listened to his prayer, and the king was able to bring back the hand to himself. And this is the third miracle. So, and so forth. So we will continue Be'ezrat Hashem next week, and we'll see the development of what happens to the son of Yerovam, who reigned after him, King Nadav, and what happens to him, and who will come instead of him, and so forth. So I wish you all to be healthy and safe. And I hope that
Yes.
next week we'll
try to unmute him.
And I also wish you a happy Purim. You should have a happy Purim.
Happy Purim.
You know that I want to tell you that this guy came to his his wife. A Moroccan guy came to his wife and he says to her, honey, I want to dress on Purim. I want to dress as Shlomo HaMelech. Can you arrange for me 1,000 wives? So she says to him, why Shlomo HaMelech? Why don't you dress as Pharaoh? And I'll arrange for you 10 plagues. So I wish you a happy Purim, all of you.